Tere, oleme Loomuse Akadeemia saates, aga lülitun inglise keelele, sest saate külaline on Michelle, kes on Cruelty Free Internationalist ja temaga me räägime inglise keeles. Hello,
Hello.
thank you for coming. It's Loomuse Academy. I'm Faristamo Eller from Loomus, and our today's discussion is about animal testing and cosmetics. Hello.
Hello, delighted to be here. It's great.
First of all, could you please make a small introduction about yourself, please?
Of course. So I'm Michelle Thew. I'm the Chief Executive of Cruelty Free International. And Cruelty Free International are a global organisation who lead efforts to end animal testing. So we do that in a variety of ways. We lobby governments and work to create change. We work with our colleagues across the European Union, like Loomuse, to create change from governments, from regulators. Our scientists promote the use of non-animal methods. And we work with citizens and consumers to take their voice to government and companies. And then we work with great brands internationally who want to drive animal testing out of their supply chain and become cruelty free. And I've been leading the organisation for many years now. I'm a lifelong kind of animal activist, and was one of those sort of children that, you know, went vegetarian when I was at school and always cared about this issue and wanted to turn from being a kind of letter writer and a volunteer into someone who did this full time as my passion. And I feel very lucky to have a role that enables me to do full time the thing that I really care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds very, very good. First of all, the question many people ask is it at all possible not to use animals and do these products without them?
It absolutely is. So Cruelty Free International's our main objection to animal testing, whether that's for cosmetics or products more broadly, is that it's unnecessary, it's cruel, it's unethical. So we are an animal protection organisation, first and foremost. But actually, what has really happened over the last of decades in particular is that non-animal methods have really developed. So now we have both ethical and scientific arguments to not test products and ingredients on animals. And that's not just because ending the use of animals would be less cruel. It's also because these methods are much more reliable and effective. So they're cheaper, more effective, and critically more relevant to humans than using animals in testing. So thousands of great brands internationally now no longer rely on animal testing, and they put great, safe products onto the market.
Mm-hmm. But which are the how to say it, like what is stopping it, or where it sounds so logical and still there are so many testing going on?
It is logical, and we say that this should have come to an end a long time ago. You know, we should have got to the point by now when we had consigned animal testing to the history books, because we have got a lot of great non-animal methods now, whether it's, you know, computer modeling, for example, or looking at existing data from ingredients, or even now we have things like reconstructed human skin. So you can test ingredients on reconstructed human skin rather than scraping the back off a guinea pig, for example. So clearly more relevant and more human relevant. I think one of the difficulties is not so much with brands that want to test on animals, they don't. It's often with regulators being slow to get the pace of change. So, you know, brands may have to test individual ingredients to meet the demands of regulators. We have, for example, in the European Union, huge chemical testing programs like REACH that are forcing brands to retest existing ingredients on animals, even where there are non-animal methods. So the issue is more now with that kind of regulation, with additional requirements for things like chemical tests. It's not that brands are wanting to do these tests. It's very often that they're put into this position by regulators and governments. And that's why at Cruelty Free International, we're campaigning to derive animal testing out of major programs like the chemicals testing program REACH.
Mm-hmm. But how is it with scientists? Are there a lot of scientists who still say that animal testing is somehow crucial?
Yes, if you look at animal testing more broadly, away from maybe the issue of product testing, more and more scientists are now recognizing that non-animal methods are more effective. But it is true, there will still be some scientists whose whole career has been based upon using animal models. So that is what they're used to, that is what they know. And some scientists still believe that the animal model is more effective. So we have got both an ethical argument and a scientific one. And you can feel that that change is coming. There are more and more calls now to transition to a non-animal strategy. We feel there's a real urgency about that, not just for animals, but for human health and the environment too. So you're right, there are still some scientists who are used to animal models, believe in animal models, but increasingly more and more are recognizing the value of non-animal methods.
Mm-hmm. But do you know about money? Is it somehow still too expensive, all these other methods, or what can be the problem there, why people do not take it too easily?
Yeah, there are issues with cost, but that's more, there may be startup costs with transitioning to new methods, but overall they're cheaper. You know, it's much cheaper to use a more reliable non-animal method than it is to test on animals. You know, you've got to house animals and look after animals, and this is a longer term prospect. So non-animal methods are actually cheaper. I think one of the issues really is with regulation, that it's sometimes very slow to get even a promising non-animal method from the scientific bench through to use by industry. It can take up to 10 years from the idea where a non-animal method comes off the bench scientifically as valid, can take 10 years for that to get into use in industry. So there needs to be a lot more effort to actually speed up that validation process so those methods are available for people in industry to use. And there needs to be a lot more pressure on governments to actually prioritise this. This is not an issue that gets a lot of political attention. Animal experiments are hidden. They're secretive very often. It's very difficult for the public to actually know what's happening behind the scenes. So I think opening up what's happening to animals in laboratories, more transparency, more engagement from citizens to demand that this transition happens faster will all help. And they're all of the levers that Cruelty Free International is pushing. I mean, the good news is, if you look at some sectors like cosmetics, more and more companies now are moving across to cruelty-free methods. And for example, we have over 1,000 brands that are Leaping Bunny approved now, who want to take animal testing out of their supply chain. So change is coming, but it's slower than we would like.
Mm-hmm. I have heard also this kind of talking that to get this improvement, it also costs money. So people like normal users, they are not sure if to trust some kind of labels. What would you answer, or how would you assure them that it is okay to trust, for example, Leaping Bunny, and to be sure that yes, it is okay and it is cruelty free?
That's a really good question. There's been so much confusion for consumers and so many different rabbits and labels, and you can pick up a bottle and it will say not tested. Sometimes if a product says not tested on animals, that's just the finished product, not the ingredients. And testing happens at the level of the ingredient. And that's one of the reasons why, together with other animal protection organisations, we stand behind the Leaping Bunny programme, and why Cruelty Free International runs that programme, because it's a set of agreed global criteria. So it's very clear that a brand has to do all that they can to end animal testing. So we interrogate those ingredients right down to the level of the raw material. We ask for brands to be open to independent audit, for example, so there's transparency, and really to change the way they do business with their supplier monitoring. So this is not just a tick box exercise, it's a full program and it's very thorough. And brands still face challenges, you know, with chemicals testing, with REACH requirements. So we help our brands navigate that as best they can, whilst also, you know, campaigning to get full bans on animal testing for cosmetics in markets worldwide. So the Leaping Bunny is the global gold standard. It's the best at the moment that a brand can achieve. And if consumers look for that Leaping Bunny, go to the Cruelty Free International website, they'll see the brands that have, you know, walked that extra mile to achieve that approval.
Mm-hmm. Would you describe a little bit more what is it, what brands do to get this Leaping Bunny approval?
Yes, so if a brand wants to be Leaping Bunny approved, they start a conversation with us, and we then sit down with them and we look at everything that goes into their products. So a brand has to really understand all of the ingredients and all of their supply chain. And so we track those individual ingredients, and with us, the brand will reach out to all of their suppliers of all of those ingredients to ask them for a declaration so they know what animal testing there's been on that product and when. So we gather all of that information, and only when a brand has been able to track all of their individual ingredients and got responses from all of their suppliers do they apply to us for that approval. It's not just a one-off approval either. A brand has to open themselves up to audit. So at the point at which they join the program, they undergo an audit to join. And then every 3 years, they have an independent audit. And every year they have to renew all of those declarations from their suppliers. So it requires a brand really changing the way they do business. So meaning that from today and into the future, everything that they buy will meet those Leaping Bunny criteria. So it's about tracking all individual ingredients, getting a declaration from all of your suppliers, and then honouring that commitment into the future with independent audit. And only when a brand has achieved all of that do they get the Leaping Bunny symbol.
Mm-hmm. That explains why not so many products have that Leaping Bunny approval.
Yes, there are about 1,000 now, and it's growing. And what's been really great over the last few years is Leaping Bunny approval has gone from being something maybe where you would have to cross town to go to your local health store because you were really committed. I would have walked miles to get a product that was Leaping Bunny approved, but not everyone will. People want to be able to shop in their local store and in their local chemist. So actually the range of brands has really improved. So we've got some real giants, you know, it started with kind of ethical brands like The Body Shop or Liz Earle, who've always been committed. Now we have great global giants like Garnier who are on board with the program. So it's bringing cruelty-free beauty into everyone's high street, which is great. Yeah. And now there are more and more brands coming to us, which is really exciting.
This is good, yes, because in Estonia, for example, my colleagues, they had a discussion with one big store if they could be part of, it was about fur free, and they said that they can't tell to this people who sell their products what do they sell. So in that sense, it's very good if these producers already do ethical things, because it seems absolutely. That shops will not do that.
Absolutely. So we have a range of companies now on Leaping Bunny. So we have some, you know, small startup brands who are organic and ethical in their core. Then we have, you know, major supermarkets now who have their own brand ranges as Leaping Bunny approved. So it's becoming more and more accessible. So there will be more and more brands. What we need is to see some Estonian brands actually approved. So, you know, made in Estonian brands to step forward. At the moment, there are a number of international brands that are Leaping Bunny approved that sell in Estonia. So there are choices, but we need to really push those choices. And I hope that by working with Loomuse, we can increase the number of Leaping Bunny approved brands that there are in Estonia.
Mm-hmm. Now about this legislations, you said that this is one of the biggest issue. Which are your experiences on that? How do politicians take that topic? How fast do they understand and come along?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our push is with brands, but it's also obviously with governments. So we need to see governments really change, and we're calling for a rapid transition to the use of non-animal methods now. There have been some real great steps forward and then some challenges, I think, over the last decade. So we've had steps forward with country after country, maybe bringing forward bans on animal testing for cosmetics. But then we've had steps back where big programs like REACH, the chemicals testing program for Europe, requiring hundreds of thousands of animals to be used. So that's why we, with other organisations, were part of the European Citizens Initiative, calling upon Europe both to honour the animal testing ban for cosmetics, but also to make real changes to chemicals legislation so that we can drive animal testing out of chemicals. So we're asking for an action plan from Europe. And there's been a lot of development on that. You know, there have been hearings in the European Parliament, meetings with the European Commission. Over 1 million European citizens signed that citizens' initiative to call for change. So the doors are starting to open. We are starting now to see an awareness that we need to see some real change in these big programs like these chemicals testing programs, and to make sure that animals are on the agenda. But we're not there yet. We still have a long way to go, and we need European citizens to continue to add their voice and to support us to make sure that politicians continue to listen to the voice of citizens who really care about animal testing. And opinion poll after opinion poll demonstrate that they want this to come to an end. So yes, we've seen some real progress, but we're not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a lot of these kind of features what are made in laboratories or where animal testing is happening? Because it seems, like you said also in the beginning, that it is hidden. People do not see that. So it's easy not to think about that because it's not on their plate. Do you use this kind of material lots? Does it work with politicians?
Yes, we do. Cruelty Free International does do undercover investigations to shine a light on the reality for animals in laboratories, because this is very much a hidden and secretive industry. So in some countries, including the UK, it's actually an offence to share information about animal testing. So it's not covered by regular freedom of information legislation in the same way. So we have a real struggle with this issue. So we do undercover investigations, and we bring then the sadness and the cruelty of these tests into public view. So the way in which we would talk to politicians and the public is a mixture. Yes, sometimes you do need to show the reality of these tests because the public are not aware of what happens. But we don't believe that we should only shock people into support. We believe in showing that there's a positive way forward. So that's why the work we do, for example, with Leaping Bunny is so important, because you need to say to people, there's a solution. And you need to demonstrate to politicians and to governments that there's a solution. So some politicians will care about animal testing in the way that we do. They will care about animal protection, and they'll be prepared to take action just because they care about the suffering. For some other politicians, that's not their key motivator, but they may be interested to hear that non-animal methods are more reliable, they're more effective for human medicine, for example, that there's an economic benefit, that there's an environmental benefit if products are tested effectively. So we sometimes will talk to politicians, yes, about the animal suffering that's involved, but also about the fact that driving innovation through Europe with non-animal methods is a win-win economically and for humans too. Animals benefit, but so does human health.
Yes, thank you. It is really so that people somehow or most of them do not think about that it is beneficial for everyone, and not only because of the animals, but also environment and everything else, and economically also.
That's right. And I don't want animal protection to be put in a box over here, that it's just, you know, for me, I came into this because I care passionately about animal protection and animal suffering. And I think anyone who thinks about this and thinks about the experiences of those animals must surely recognise that this has to stop. But we also need to demonstrate, I recognise, that this is better for human health, and critically, that this isn't an either or, you know, either you test on animals or you're putting unsafe products onto the market. There are laws that make sure that everything that goes onto the market is safe. There are thousands of brands working without animal testing, putting great safe products onto the market. So this isn't a trade-off between animal testing and human health and safety. It's a win-win situation, and it's really important that that message comes across to governments and that they accelerate this transition away from animal testing for the benefit of animals, but for the benefit of humans and the environment too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so very well said. And to wrap it up, would you like to say something in the end, some suggestions, some good wishes?
Well, I'd like to say thank you for your partnership. We work with Loomuse within Cruelty Free Europe as a gathering of organisations who really care about creating change in Europe. So I would say to anyone watching this, the most important thing that you can do is, you know, shop, share, support. So shop for Leaping Bunny approved products, share contents and campaigns from Cruelty Free International, Cruelty Free Europe, from Loomuse, to continue to get the message out there, and support these great organisations who are trying to create this change, because we are all small voluntary organisations. We could achieve nothing without the support of consumers and citizens who care about these issues too. So continue to support us as organisations, and thank you for your partnership. And change is coming. It's our job to just accelerate that a little bit more.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you everyone for listening and watching, and really, hopefully, animal testing will stop as soon as possible, because this is enormous suffering for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.